Hey, this is Craig Stevens. We're at the Franklin Festival, Arts Festival, and Williamson County Arts Council is here with a bunch of artists, and we got to meet a bunch of them today. I'm going to introduce you to Dan, and he's going to take it from there and tell us a little bit about himself, and then he's going to talk about his art. But I'm looking at watercolor, and I'm looking at a bunch of watercolor, so it looks like he's been working for a while. So, Dan, tell us something about yourself.
Hey, Craig. Nice to meet you today. My name's Dan Zehr, and it's Dan with two N's, so you can call me Dan, or just Dan with two N's. So I kind
of like the Dan.
Okay. I have been messing with watercolor and self-teaching for probably 25 years, and ever since, longer than that probably, because my mom gave me my first watercolor set when I was about 5, and so I dabbled with that then. But I really kind of started taking it a little more seriously and just doing it as a hobby since probably the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And my wife gave me a nice kit one time for Christmas, so I really kind of took it from there. But I like to do plein air these days, plein air painting on location like I did today. Mel here next door, we're sharing a space today. So as a thank you to him for sharing the space with me today for the Arts Council Williamson County, I just started to draw him. So he said he'd never really gotten anybody painting him. He paints a lot of people. I said, well, I wondered about that, if you ever had anybody paint you. So I just gave him that painting today that I did. So
he looks very much like an artist over there, doesn't he? He's got his right hat on and he looks like he's a very professional artist.
He does, and he's got his apron and everything. So he was painting his son, Luca, today. I did a portrait of Luca, so I thought I'd catch him while he was doing that. So, and the beautiful weather today here in Franklin, and the shadows are good. So much to paint, so little time. That's always the way it is. So
yeah, and it's hard to get out in the open and paint sometimes, but especially in the middle of summer when the bugs are out. Have you noticed that?
Yes, and the wind kind of dries the paint a little quicker, so I've kept spraying it today with the spray bottle several times. But no, it's good, though. Any day you can get out and paint. It's great.
Well, tell us something interesting about painting watercolor.
I used to, in the early days, try to experiment with different techniques. Like sometimes you can use foil or saran wrap for different textures on watercolor. You put the pigment down and then you let the saran wrap or something dry, or the foil dry overnight, and it gives it a cool texture. Anymore, though, or salt techniques. I mean, those kinds of things.
Salt technique.
Salt. When you put the pigment down, and it's a certain wetness. It's still got to be damp, but not too damp. And if you put salt on it, it separates the pigment and makes a texture like that. So you can do salt as a technique, which is a kind of a tried and true technique. And I'll use that occasionally, but every once in a while I'll use splatter now. Just either a dry brush or a wet brush with clear water, or with pigment on it to give it a different look too on the splatter. But anymore, I'm perfectly satisfied just using a piece of paper and some pigment and water, and I love that look about it. And I've learned to move light to dark as far as the technique. Light wash, the first wash, the second wash, if you're going to do that, do medium values to that, and then go to the darker values on the third. A lot more pigment and less water, on the third round or third wash. And the details, and adding those details, on the third, making the darks darkest on the third time through, and but it gives it an ethereal effect if you do that. An ethereal effect when you let the watercolor, what I call, let it work its magic, and work together, and just meld together and do what watercolor does. It just looks dreamy, ethereal, kind of that kind of thing when you let it blend together.
Yeah, I do oils and acrylic, and oils are pretty forgiving.
Yes.
If they're wet, they're kind of a little bit harder to let them dry. It takes a little longer, but the acrylics are very forgiving. I sometimes even sand down the whole thing and start over.
Isn't that something?
But
it's a water media, though. It's acrylic's a water media too, so that would be a little more,
But I always found watercolor more challenging because it's kind of like you got one chance.
Right. And that's what I talked to a couple today, oil painters, acrylic painters, who always say the same thing. You know, they say the same thing about watercolor, that it's just a little more challenging. But that's all I've ever tried to do, because I just like the look of it. I guess I grew up in the 60s where watercolor was all over the place on ads and things like that, it seemed like. And so I guess maybe it reminds me of my childhood, maybe shopping with my mom. I don't know. But I always like the look of watercolor. So
I've seen people use a pen, like the felt tip pens, and then use that like a watercolor?
Yeah, a pen and wash kind of a thing. Yes. I see that style too. And I usually just use graphite to draw first, and then and not so much a pen. But I've seen that too, and it's really effective. And it's I think it's you can do a quick one like that. You can do a quick, if you draw it quickly with the pen and put some watercolor on there. It looks really cool, and you can get it done quickly.
Yeah, and it bleeds together and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, that's very good. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you and see your artwork, how would they do that?
Sure. I have a Fine Art America site. So it is, and you've got the QR code there.
So I'll put that QR code on there. Is there a website that goes along with that, or do you go to Fine Art and then look up your name?
Yeah, just go to fineartamerica.com and look up Dan, D-A-N-N, and Zehr, Z-E-H-R, and you can find me there. I've got probably a couple hundred paintings on there, maybe 300 or something, in different collections and things like that. So, I do mostly landscape. I don't know. I do what looks fun to paint. I don't have a specific subject that I do. If something looks like it would be fun to paint, and maybe somebody might hang it in their house, I don't know, then I'll paint that. If the light and dark shadows are good, man, that's just like calling me to paint it.
Yeah, and I heard someone that this reminded me of that said, follow the muse. If it looks like there's something that's calling you, do that, or the muse will leave you.
Yeah. And what's the old master say? He also says, a painting's never really finished. You just simply walk away. I can't remember who said that, but because you can dabble and noodle it to death, you know what I mean? And that's another thing with the watercolors is, trying to let it do its thing without overworking it too. That's a challenge. It's a constant challenge to let it do its thing. Paint itself almost. You can guide it, but that's a constant challenge.
I understand. I feel that way a lot. As a matter of fact, I just finished a painting today, and it's oil, but I was thinking I could go on forever.
Sure. Like I said, you simply walk away. You have to walk away,
I could add so much more detail or not.
Right. And thing with watercolor, too, is you could put a lot of detail, but sometimes like a simple brushstroke is giving you the all you need to read what's there, and let the imagination do the rest instead of being too detailed, which is also a constant challenge.
Was it Hirschfeld that just had pen and ink? Was that? No, not Hirschfeld. Who is it? Anyway, I'm thinking. I think I'm thinking of motivational theories now.
Okay.
But there's. I remember there's a famous artist that just had pen and ink and they were just very minimalist, and it was perfect. So less was more.
Yeah, Picasso did the same thing. I mean, he'd write on a napkin and just a couple strokes, Yep. But yeah, that's the thing. Also, I was just thinking of the one I just finished for Mel. Painting him was some of the background buildings here on the street, on Main Street. I just didn't want to put too much detail in, because then that would draw you away from him, and he was the focal point on the
right. And so, and that's the difference between a seasoned artist and someone who doesn't, is just getting started. They want to put everything in, and they want to focus on everything instead of have some things just kind of fade out in the background or foreground.
You're right. Yeah, and make the focal point more detailed, but the background less so. But that is also a constant challenge. I mean, because you want to paint, right? So you're there to paint. So hey, let's paint some more of this in the background, and you think, oh, that's good. No, just stop. Just stop. You know? Yeah,
that's probably. I'm painting a series of Franklin and Linwood Downs area,
cool.
And I'm thinking, as we're talking, am I overdoing this? Am I putting too much into it? But that's a good way to think. And
Sure.
Talking to a watercolor artist really gives you an idea of just don't overdo it.
Yeah, well, and again, not that I do this every time, because not that I've already been made perfect, but I strive towards the goal, right? So.
All right, so one last time, any final words, and also remind everybody how to get a hold of you again.
Sure. Thanks for stopping by the booth here for Arts Council Williamson County. And it's fineartamerica.com, and look up Dan, D-A-N-N, Zehr, Z-E-H-R. You can find my stuff there. Get prints. I think prints are really reasonable for $17 or something like that if somebody wants a print. But, thanks for stopping here, Craig, and talking to me.
Yeah, well, I just made a new friend today, so that's always a good thing.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Thanks, Craig.
Your art is stunning. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, remember to support your local artists, support your local businesses, never stop creating, and always remember the great creator who makes all things possible.